Captain Park Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Horizon and watched the stars. It was a quiet night in space. The ship moved slowly through the darkness near the edge of the solar system. Nothing exciting ever happened here. That was about to change. The communication officer turned around with wide eyes. "Captain, we are receiving a message. It is coming from very far away." Tae-ho walked over to the screen. "Who is sending it?" "Sir, it is from the Galactic Council." Everyone on the bridge stopped moving. The Galactic Council was the government of thousands of alien species across the galaxy. Humanity had joined their community only 80 years ago. To the ancient aliens, humans were like babies who had just learned to walk. The Council had never sent a direct message to any human ship before. "Play it," Tae-ho said. A strange voice filled the bridge. It was soft and musical, like wind through crystal. "To the species known as humanity, the Galactic Council requests your presence. This is not a social visit. This is a request for help. Please send your representatives to Luminara immediately. Time is short." The message ended. The bridge was silent. Tae-ho took a deep breath. "Set a course for Earth. I need to make some calls." 3 days later, Tae-ho stood in front of the United Earth Council. They gave him a simple order. "Go to Luminara. Find out what the aliens want. Do not embarrass humanity." He assembled his team carefully. Dr. Kim Yuna was a xenobiologist who had spent 15 years studying alien life. She could speak 7 alien languages and understood their cultures better than anyone. Lieutenant Han Minho was his tactical officer, a young man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. He saw patterns where others saw chaos. Engineer Bae So-hee kept the Horizon running. She was quiet and serious, but there was no machine she could not fix. The journey to Luminara took 3 weeks. During that time, the crew prepared for anything. They studied council protocols. They practiced diplomatic greetings. They wondered why the most powerful civilization in the galaxy would ask humans for help. "Maybe their computers are broken," Minho joked one evening. "Everyone knows our computers are terrible compared to theirs." Yuna shook her head. "They would not call us for something so small. This is bigger, much bigger." "How do you know?" So-hee asked. "Because they said they need help. The council never asks for help. They give orders." "They make decisions. They do not ask." The Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Luminara. Tae-ho had seen pictures of the planet, but pictures were not enough. Luminara glowed like a jewel in space. Its surface was covered with cities that shined with golden light. Massive space stations floated around it like rings around a king. A small ship came to guide them to the landing zone. As they descended through the atmosphere, Tae-ho saw millions of buildings stretching to the horizon. Everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. Everything made him feel very, very small. They landed on a platform made of white stone. A group of aliens was waiting for them. Most of them were Lumari, the species that had founded the council millions of years ago. They were tall and thin, with skin that glowed faintly blue. Their eyes were large and kind, but also ancient. They had seen civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. One Lumari stepped forward. "I am High Counselor Velith. Welcome to Luminara, humans." Another alien pushed forward. This one was different. Its body was covered in shimmering scales, and it breathed through gills on its neck. Water dripped from its special suit. "I am Ambassador Threll of the Nerathi Collective. I must ask why we have summoned such a young species. Surely there are better options." Velith raised a hand. "The Council has decided, Threll. Humanity is here because we need them." Tae-ho stepped forward and bowed respectfully. "High Counselor, we are honored by your invitation, but we do not understand. How can we help the Galactic Council? Your technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Your ships are faster. Your weapons are stronger. What can humans offer? Veleth's glowing eyes looked sad. Come with me, Captain. All of you. What I am about to show you cannot be explained with words. They followed Veleth into a massive building. Inside was a room filled with floating screens and holographic displays. Images covered every surface. Taiho saw planets burning. He saw space stations torn apart. He saw entire star systems disappearing into darkness. What is this? Yuna whispered. This is the Devourer Swarm, Veleth said. They are a plague, part machine, part living creature. They move from star to star, consuming everything, planets, moons, stations, ships. Nothing survives. Minho studied the images. How long have they existed? Millions of years. They sleep for long periods, then wake and feed. 10,000 years ago, they destroyed the Kalori Empire. Before that, they ended the Vorthon Dominion. Now they have awakened again. Sohi frowned. And your weapons cannot stop them. We have tried everything. Energy weapons, missiles, biological agents, nanomachines. The swarm adapts. Within hours, they become immune to any weapon we use. Our best scientists have calculated the probability of survival. Veleth paused. It is 0.3%. The galaxy will fall within 5 years. The room was silent. Taiho felt cold. Why us? Why humanity? Veleth turned to face him. Our archives contain one record, one small note from thousands of years ago. A human colony faced a swarm outbreak. A small one. They had no advanced weapons, no powerful ships. But they survived. They won. How? Taiho asked. That is what we need you to tell us, Captain. Because right now, humanity's past may be the galaxy's only future. Before Taiho could respond, alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed across every screen. Veleth's face went pale. The swarm's vanguard fleet has been detected. They are 3 years ahead of our predictions. The ancient alien looked at Taiho with something new in his eyes. Fear. We have 6 months, Captain. 6 months before they reach us. Can your people find the answer in time? Taiho looked at his crew. Yuna, Minho, Sohi. They were scared. He was scared too. But he saw something else in their eyes. Determination. We will try, he said. That is what humans do. The Council's war room was filled with the most brilliant minds in the galaxy. Scientists from 100 different species studied data on floating screens. Military commanders pointed at star maps and argued about defense strategies. Everyone was talking. Nobody had answers. Captain Taiho sat with his crew in a corner of the room. They watched and listened. The aliens spoke of weapons that could crack planets in half. They discussed shields that could stop anything. They had ships that moved faster than light and armies that numbered in the trillions. None of it mattered. The swarm adapts to everything, a Lumari scientist explained to the room. We hit them with plasma cannons. They developed heat-resistant armor within 4 hours. We used kinetic missiles. They grew harder shells. We tried biological weapons. They became immune. We sent nanomachines to eat them from inside. They absorbed the nanomachines and used them against us. Ambassador Threll slammed his webbed hand on the table. Then we hit them with everything at once. All weapons, all ships. One massive attack. The scientist shook her head. We tried that too. 800 years ago, the Morith Confederation gathered the largest fleet ever assembled. 2 million ships. They attacked the swarm with every weapon they had. She paused. The swarm adapted to all of them within 6 hours. The Morath Confederation no longer exists. The room fell silent. Taiho could feel the despair in the air. These beings had lived for millions of years. They had built wonders that humans could barely imagine, and they had no idea how to survive. Minho leaned close to Taiho. Captain, I have been thinking. Everyone here is trying to find a way to destroy the swarm. But what if that is the wrong question? What do you mean? What if we do not try to destroy them? What if we make them choose to leave? Taiho stared at his tactical officer. The swarm does not choose anything. They are machines. They follow programming. Are they? Minho pulled up data on his tablet. They adapt. They learn. They change strategies. That is not simple programming. That is thinking, and anything that thinks can be made to change its mind. Yuna had been listening. Her eyes widened. Minho is right. I have studied the swarm specimens the Council captured. They have a hive mind. All of them are connected. And when swarm units die, the hive mind feels something. It might be pain. It might be loss. But they feel it. So he frowned. So what? We hurt them a little and they run away? That does not sound realistic. No, Yuna said slowly. But what if we hurt them a lot? What if we make every battle so painful that they decide the cost is too high? Taiho stood up. He walked to the center of the room. Every alien eye turned to look at the small human. High Counselor Veleth, may I speak? Veleth nodded. Please, Captain. We will listen to any idea. Your people keep asking how to win against the swarm, how to destroy them, how to achieve victory. Taiho looked around the room. But humans do not think that way. We do not always fight to win. Sometimes we fight just to make sure the enemy cannot win either. Confused murmurs spread through the room. Threll laughed, a wet bubbling sound. That is absurd. What is the point of fighting if you cannot win? The point is survival. Not for yourself, for others, for the future. Taiho pulled up images from human history on the main screen. In our past, we had many wars. Sometimes, small groups of humans faced enemies they could never defeat. But they fought anyway. They made the enemy pay for every step forward. They turned every road into a trap, every building into a fortress, every victory into a wound. He showed them images of ancient battles, soldiers holding mountain passes against armies 10 times their size, cities that fought for months even when surrounded, ships that rammed enemy vessels rather than surrender. We call this attrition. You make the enemy bleed. You make them spend resources. You make them question if the prize is worth the price. Taiho turned to face Veleth. The swarm wants to consume the galaxy. We cannot stop them, but we can make the galaxy so painful to swallow that they choke on it. The room was completely silent. The alien stared at Taiho like he had grown a second head. Veleth spoke slowly. You are suggesting that we fight a war we know we cannot win, that we sacrifice lives not for victory but simply to cause pain to the enemy. Yes. That is insane. Maybe. But it is also human. Yuna stepped forward. High Counselor, I have found the records from the human colony that survived the swarm. They did not have powerful weapons. They fought with mining equipment and homemade explosives. They set traps. They collapsed tunnels on top of swarm units. They made every meter of ground cost lives. She showed the data on the screen. The swarm lost thousands of units taking that colony. It was a tiny world with barely any resources. But the swarm left. They abandoned the attack and moved on to easier targets. Because the colony made itself too expensive to consume. Minho added, the swarm thinks in terms of efficiency, resources gained versus resources lost. If we make the math wrong, if we make every system cost more than it gives, they will eventually look elsewhere. Threll stood up angrily. You want us to turn the entire galaxy into a trap? To sacrifice trillions of lives just to cause pain? This is madness. This is survival, Taiho said calmly. Your way leads to extinction. Our way leads to maybe living through this. I know which one I prefer. Veleth raised his hand for silence. The ancient being looked at Taiho for a long time. Then he looked at the screens showing the swarm's advance. Thousands of ships. Millions of soldiers, an endless hunger coming to devour everything. The council will discuss your proposal, Captain. Veleth's voice was heavy. But I will tell you something. In all my years, I have never heard a strategy like this. Your species fights not to win, but to make losing unbearable for the enemy. It is terrifying. It is irrational. He paused. It might be our only hope. That night, Taiho stood alone on a balcony overlooking the glowing city of Luminara. Yuna found him there. "Do you think they will accept our plan?" she asked. "I do not know. It goes against everything they believe." Taiho looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the swarm was coming. But they are running out of options. Fear makes people do things they never thought possible. And if they say yes? If we actually try this? Taiho turned to face her. His eyes were sad, but determined. Then we fight. We bleed. We make them hurt. And maybe, just maybe, we give the galaxy a chance. The stars continued to shine above them. But now some of those stars were going dark. The swarm was feeding, and time was running out. The council said yes. They had no other choice. For the first time in galactic history, a young species was given command of the defense. Captain Taiho became Admiral Taiho overnight. His small crew suddenly had authority over the largest military force ever assembled. The aliens did not like it. Ambassador Threll complained every day. But they followed orders. Fear is a powerful teacher. Taiho called his plan Operation Eternal Thorn. The name was simple. The idea was brutal. Every planet would become a trap. Every system would cost the swarm blood. Every victory would feel like defeat. Lieutenant Minho began training the alien crews immediately. He gathered commanders from 50 different species in a massive hall on Luminara. They looked at him with doubt in their eyes. This young human was going to teach them about war. They had been fighting battles before his species learned to use fire. Minho stood before them without fear. "I know what you are thinking. You have fought wars for millions of years. What can a human teach you?" He smiled. "I am going to teach you how to lose." The aliens looked confused. "Your doctrine is based on winning. You attack when you have a 70% chance of victory. You retreat when the odds drop below 60%. Your battles are calculated, efficient, clean." Minho shook his head. "The swarm has already learned how you fight. They know your patterns. They predict your movements. That is why you keep losing." He pulled up a tactical display. "Human doctrine is different. We do not retreat when the odds are bad. We dig in deeper. We make the enemy pay for every centimeter. We fight when we are surrounded. We fight when we are outnumbered. We fight when there is no hope of victory." A Lumari commander raised her hand. "Why? What is the purpose of fighting when you cannot win?" "Because sometimes the purpose is not winning. The purpose is making the enemy remember you, making them afraid of the next battle, making them wonder if the prize is worth the cost." He showed them examples from human history. Small forces holding against impossible odds. Soldiers who charged into certain death to buy time for others. Pilots who crashed their ships into enemy vessels when their weapons failed. You will lose ships. You will lose soldiers. You will lose battles. But you will make the swarm bleed for every single one. And eventually, they will decide that this galaxy is not worth the pain. The training was hard. The aliens struggled with concepts that came naturally to humans. The idea of acceptable losses horrified them. The concept of fighting to the death seemed insane, but slowly they began to understand. One Narathi captain approached Minho after a training session. "I have a question. You humans are willing to die for your cause. But what is your cause? What do you fight for?" Minho thought about it. "We fight for each other, for our families, for the future, for the idea that something matters more than our own survival. The Narathi was silent for a long moment. My people live for thousands of years. We have always valued survival above all else. Perhaps that is why we have never faced an enemy we could not run from. He looked at Minho with new respect. You humans live such short lives. Maybe that is why you do not fear death the same way. While Minho trained the crews, Engineer Sohi worked on the ships. The Council's vessels were marvels of technology. Perfect engines, perfect shields, perfect weapons. Sohi hated them. These ships are too smart, she told Taiho. Everything is automated, everything is optimized. The swarm will study them and learn their patterns within minutes. What do you suggest? Sohi grinned. It was not a nice grin. We make them stupid. She began retrofitting the Council fleet with human technology, manual controls, analog systems, backup mechanisms that did not rely on computers. The aliens complained that she was ruining their beautiful ships. Your beautiful ships are predictable, Sohi explained. The swarm can hack into your networks and know exactly what you will do next. But they cannot hack into a human brain. They cannot predict what someone will do when they turn off the computer and fly by instinct. She installed what she called chaos generators, random number systems that change ship behavior unpredictably. Sometimes the shields would strengthen. Sometimes they would weaken. Sometimes the weapons would fire in patterns, sometimes randomly. The swarm would not be able to adapt because there would be nothing consistent to adapt to. Dr. Yuna focused on understanding the enemy. She spent long hours studying captured swarm units. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Metal and flesh merged together perfectly. Weapons grew from their bodies like natural limbs. They could survive in space, in fire, in ice. They were perfect killing machines. But they had a weakness. Yuna found it hidden in their neural patterns. The hive mind feels everything, she reported to Taiho. When a swarm unit dies, the entire collective experiences the loss. It is not just data to them. It is something closer to pain, grief, trauma. Can we use that? I think so. The swarm has never faced an enemy willing to cause them extended suffering. They have always won quickly, cleanly. But if we make every battle long and bloody, if we make them feel thousands of deaths over and over, they might break. Not physically, psychologically. The first test came sooner than expected. A swarm scout fleet appeared at the edge of Council space. 20 ships, barely anything compared to the full force that was coming. But it was enough to prove the theory. Taiho sent a small task force to intercept them. 10 Council ships, modified with human technology, crewed by aliens trained in human tactics. The battle lasted 4 hours. Normally, a fight against the swarm lasted minutes. The Council ships refused to retreat. They fought at close range where the swarm could not use their superior numbers. They rammed damaged ships into swarm vessels. They detonated their reactors when they were about to be captured. When it was over, all 10 Council ships were destroyed. But so were 18 swarm ships. The last 2 fled. Taiho watched the footage in silence. Good soldiers had died. Brave aliens who had learned to fight like humans. But they had done something no one else had ever achieved. They had made the swarm run. High Counselor Velith stood beside him. 40% casualties, the ancient being said. That is a high price. Yes, Taiho agreed. But the swarm lost 90%, and more importantly, they retreated. They have never done that before. Velith nodded slowly. Your plan is working. But can we sustain this? Can we keep paying this price until the swarm decides we are not worth consuming? Taiho looked at the stars. Out there, the main swarm fleet was getting closer every day. Millions of ships, billions of soldiers, an endless hunger. We have to, he said, because the alternative is extinction. On the ruined battlefield, among the wreckage of council ships and swarm corpses, something was changing. The surviving swarm units sent a message back to their hive mind, a message of confusion, of pain, of something they had never felt before, uncertainty. The galaxy burned. For 6 months, the war raged across 1,000 star systems. Every day brought news of another battle, another victory, another defeat. The line between winning and losing became meaningless. All that mattered was making the swarm pay. Human volunteers flooded into council space. They came on old ships that barely worked. They came with outdated weapons and worn uniforms. They came because Earth had asked for volunteers, and millions had answered. Not soldiers, teachers, engineers, pilots, doctors, ordinary people who decided that they would rather die fighting than wait for the darkness to reach their home. Admiral Taiho watched them arrive from the bridge of the horizon. His ship had become the symbol of the resistance. Where the horizon flew, hope followed. Another transport from Earth, Minho reported. 2,000 volunteers, average age 53. 53? So he looked up from her console. These are not young soldiers. No. These are parents, grandparents, people who have already lived their lives. Taiho's voice was quiet. They are coming so that their children might have a chance to live theirs. The battles continued. The Council lost worlds. Beautiful planets that had existed for millions of years were consumed by the swarm. But each world cost the enemy dearly. The aliens had learned their lessons well. They fought with human desperation now. They did not retreat until every possible wound had been inflicted. Ambassador Threll changed during those months. The Narathi diplomat had despised humans at first. He thought they were primitive and foolish. But then he saw something that changed his mind forever. It happened at the Battle of Serok Station. A human destroyer called the Soul had been crippled by swarm fire. Its engines were dead. Its weapons were destroyed. Escape pods had launched, carrying most of the crew to safety. But the captain stayed behind. Threll watched from his own ship as the Soul slowly turned toward the largest swarm vessel. The swarm hive ship was enormous, 10 kilometers long and covered with weapons. The tiny human destroyer looked like an insect flying toward a mountain. "What is that captain doing?" Threll demanded. "The battle is lost. She should surrender." A human officer on his bridge shook his head. "Humans do not surrender to the swarm. We know what happens to those they capture." The Soul accelerated. Its broken engines pushed the ship faster and faster. The swarm fired at it, burning holes through its hull. Still it came. The captain's voice crackled over the communication channel. She was singing, an old human song about a flower that blooms in winter. The Soul hit the hive ship at full speed. The explosion lit up the darkness of space. When the light faded, the hive ship was broken in half. Thousands of swarm units died in that moment. Threll stared at the wreckage. The human officer beside him was crying silently. "She knew she was going to die," Threll said. "She chose to die anyway." "She chose to take them with her," the officer corrected. "That is different." From that day forward, Threll never complained about human leadership again. He began to understand something that his species had never learned. Humans did not value their lives less than others. They valued what they died for more. Dr. Yuna continued her research even as the war raged around her. She studied every swarm unit they captured. She analyzed every battle recording. And slowly she built a picture of the enemy's mind. "They are afraid," she told Taiho one night. "Not of death. They accept death easily, but they are afraid of suffering. Extended pain, prolonged loss. Their hive mind was not designed to handle that." "How do you know?" "Because their behavior is changing. Look at these patterns." She showed him data from recent battles. "They are hesitating before attacking now. They are choosing easier targets. They are avoiding systems where they know we have prepared defenses. They are learning to fear. Engineer Sohi did not live to see the end of the war. It happened during the Battle of Crescent Moon, when a swarm attack pierced the Horizon's armor and breached the engine core. Radiation flooded the engineering deck. The ship would explode in minutes unless someone manually sealed the breach. Sohi was already putting on a radiation suit before anyone could stop her. "I can contain it," she said over the communication channel, "but I cannot do it remotely. I have to go in there." "You will die," Taiho said. His voice cracked. "The radiation will kill you in minutes." "Then I have minutes to save this ship." Sohi smiled at the camera. Her eyes were calm. "Captain, I have spent my whole life fixing machines. Let me fix this one last thing." She entered the radioactive chamber. For 3 hours, she worked to seal the breach. Her voice guided the engineering team through emergency repairs. She told jokes. She hummed old songs. She refused to sound afraid even as the radiation destroyed her body cell by cell. The breach was sealed. The Horizon survived. Sohi's last words were simple. "Tell my mother I did something that mattered." The crew mourned her, but they did not stop fighting. That was Sohi's final lesson. Grief is for later. The war is now. Something strange happened in the 5th month of the war. The swarm's hive mind began to change. It concentrated, focused. For the first time in 10,000 years, it formed a single consciousness, a being that could think and speak and choose. It called itself Warlord Corax. Corax reached out across space with a message that every ship received. "I am the swarm. I am the hunger that has consumed galaxies. I have a question for the species called humanity." Taiho answered. "I am listening. Why do you not stop? Your ships are weaker than ours. Your technology is primitive. Your numbers are small. Our calculations show that you cannot win. Victory is impossible for you. Yet you continue fighting. Why?" Taiho thought about Sohi, about the captain of the soul, about all the volunteers who had come from Earth to die in a war they knew they could not win. He thought about what Minho had told him months ago. Humans do not always fight to win. "You are right," Taiho said. "We cannot win, but neither can you. Not anymore." There was silence. Corax processed this information. In all the millions of years the swarm had existed, no enemy had ever said such a thing. No species had ever accepted mutual destruction as an acceptable outcome. "Explain," Corax demanded. "Every system you take, you lose ships. Every planet you consume, you lose soldiers. We have turned this galaxy into poison. You can eat it, but it will destroy you from inside. Maybe you will kill us all. Maybe you will consume every world. But you will be so weakened that the next galaxy will destroy what remains of you." "That is illogical. You would doom yourselves to doom us." "Yes." Another silence. Longer this time. When Corax spoke again, there was something new in its voice. Something that sounded almost like confusion. "We do not understand you. We have consumed 10,000 species. All of them tried to survive. All of them retreated when victory was impossible. You are the first to choose mutual destruction. Why? What makes your lives worth so little?" Taiho smiled sadly. "You have it backwards. Our lives are not worth little. What we are protecting is worth that much." The communication ended. But Taiho knew this was not over. Corax would not simply accept this answer. The swarm would try one final attack. One massive push to prove that humans were wrong. The final battle was coming, and humanity would be ready. Warlord Corax gathered the entire swarm. Every ship, every soldier, every piece of the hive mind that stretched across the stars. For 10,000 years, the swarm had never concentrated all its forces in one place. There had never been a need. But now, facing an enemy that refused to follow the rules of survival, Corax decided to end this war with one final blow. The target was Luminara, the heart of the Galactic Council. Kill the head, and the body would die. Admiral Taiho had expected this. He had been preparing for it since the war began. "They want to end this quickly," he told his commanders. "They want a decisive battle. One big fight that destroys our leadership and breaks our will." He smiled grimly. "We are going to give them a fight, but it will not end the way they expect." The defense of Luminara was the largest military operation in galactic history. Every species that had joined the Council sent ships. Old enemies fought side by side. Ancient rivals became brothers in arms. The fleet that gathered around Luminara numbered in the hundreds of thousands. But the swarm fleet was larger. When it appeared at the edge of the system, it blocked out the stars, a wall of darkness moving slowly toward the golden world. Dr. Yuna had one final role to play. She sat in a communication chamber on Luminara, surrounded by equipment that would broadcast her voice directly into the swarm's hive mind. "Are you sure about this?" Taiho asked her before the battle began. "Once you connect to their mind, there is no telling what they might do to you." Yuna nodded. "I have spent 6 months studying them. I understand them now. They are not evil, they are just hungry, and they have never encountered anything that made them question that hunger. Until us." She closed her eyes and activated the connection. For a moment, she felt nothing. Then the swarm was there. Millions of minds, all connected, all watching her. "Warlord Corax," she said, "I have a message for you. From humanity. From every species in this galaxy." "Speak," Corax answered. "We are listening. You will not win today. You may kill us all. You may burn Luminara to ash. You may consume every world in this galaxy. But you will never forget us. We will haunt you forever. Empty words. You cannot harm us after you are dead. No, but we can harm you while we are dying. Every ship in this fleet has orders. When they are damaged beyond repair, they will not retreat. They will not surrender. They will aim for your largest vessels and accelerate to maximum speed. Every captain knows this. Every crew has accepted it." Yuna's voice grew stronger. "You asked us why we fight when we cannot win. Here is your answer. We fight because we refuse to let you win easily. We fight because even in death, we can hurt you. We fight because 1,000 years from now, when your descendants approach a new galaxy, they will remember this place. They will remember the pain, and they will hesitate." The connection broke. Yuna opened her eyes. She was crying, but she was smiling too. "It is done. Now we see if they listen." The battle began. The swarm attacked in waves, endless streams of ships crashing against the Council defenses. The sky above Luminara turned white with explosions. Ships died by the thousands on both sides. Lieutenant Minho led a special squadron. Their mission was to reach Corax's command ship and destroy it. If they could break the hive mind's concentration, the swarm would lose coordination. It might be enough to turn the tide. His squadron fought through layers of swarm defenders. One by one, his pilots fell. Swarm weapons tore through shields and armor, but they kept going. Minho watched his friends die and pushed forward anyway. That was the human way. When he reached the command ship, only 3 vessels remained from his original 30. They did not hesitate. "All ships, follow me in," Minho ordered. "It has been an honor." "The honor was ours, Lieutenant," his pilots answered. They plunged into the heart of the command ship. The explosion was visible from Luminara. The effect was immediate. Corax's mind shattered into 1,000 pieces. The unified intelligence that had guided the swarm broke apart. Ships began moving randomly, losing coordination. The Council fleet pressed its advantage, destroying swarm vessels by the hundreds. But the swarm was still fighting. Even without Corax, the hunger remained. The battle continued for hours. Luminara's shields began to fail. Sections of the planet's surface burned. Then something unexpected happened. The swarm stopped attacking. Admiral Tejo watched in confusion as swarm ships began to pull back, not retreating in formation, running, fleeing in every direction. "What is happening?" High Counselor Veleth demanded. Yuna's voice came over the communication channel. She sounded exhausted but triumphant. "The hive mind received my message, all of them. Every single unit in the swarm heard what I said. And when Korax fell, they had to make their own choice for the first time." "What did they choose?" "They chose to remember. They are running because they finally understand what we were telling them. This galaxy is too painful to consume. The cost is too high." The memory of this fight will echo through their collective mind for 1,000 generations. The swarm fled into the void between galaxies. Sensors tracked them as they gathered their surviving ships and set course for distant stars. They would find new prey elsewhere. Prey that would not fight so hard. Prey that would not make them suffer. The war was over. Luminara survived, barely. 60% of the Council's worlds had been damaged or destroyed. Trillions of beings had died across every species. The cost was beyond calculation. But life continued. The galaxy still existed. The children of every species would have a future. High Counselor Veleth called a grand assembly 1 month after the battle. Representatives from every surviving species gathered in the rebuilt council chamber. And for the first time in history, humanity was invited to stand at the center. Veleth's voice echoed through the hall. "For millions of years we believed we understood civilization. We thought it was built on logic, on efficiency, on the careful calculation of risk and reward. The humans have taught us otherwise." He turned to face Admiral Tejo. "Civilization is not about surviving. It is about what you are willing to die for. The humans did not save us with superior weapons or advanced technology. They saved us with something we had forgotten we possessed. The willingness to sacrifice everything for something greater than ourselves." The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had looked down on humanity for 80 years now stood and cheered. Ambassador Threll was among them, his webbed hands clapping together. Veleth raised his hand for silence. "The Galactic Council offers humanity full membership, not as charity, not as reward, but as recognition of what you have earned. You are no longer children among elders. You are brothers and sisters in a family that nearly died together." Tejo accepted the honor on behalf of his species, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He was thinking of Sohi, who had died saving his ship. He was thinking of Minho, whose fate was still unknown. He was thinking of all the nameless volunteers who had come from Earth to die in a war they believed in. 5 years later, a salvage team found something in the debris field around the destroyed swarm command ship. A single escape pod, drifting silently among the wreckage. Inside was Lieutenant Han Minho, frozen in emergency stasis. They brought him back to Luminara. When he woke up, Admiral Tejo was sitting beside his bed. "Did we win?" Minho asked. His voice was weak, but his eyes were sharp. Tejo smiled. "We did. The swarm is gone. The galaxy is safe." "Sohi?" The smile faded. "She did not make it. She saved the horizon. She saved us all." Minho was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "She would have liked that, being remembered for saving something." On the rebuilt colony of New Busan, a memorial stood in the central plaza. It was simple, a black stone pillar with names carved into every surface. Thousands of names, millions of names. Everyone who had died fighting the swarm. At the base of the pillar, a single inscription glowed in golden letters. We held the line. Humans visited the memorial every day. So did aliens. Lumari and Narathi and beings from 100 different worlds came to pay their respects. They left flowers and tokens and silent prayers. The galaxy had changed forever. not because of technology or treaties or political agreements. It had changed because a young species had taught the ancient ones what it truly meant to fight for something. High above the memorial, the stars shone peacefully. The darkness had passed, and somewhere in the void between galaxies, the swarm remembered the pain of Luminara and moved on to easier prey. They never returned. The day the Galactic Council requested help had become the day the galaxy discovered what humanity really was. Not the smartest species, not the strongest, not the oldest or wisest, but perhaps the bravest. And sometimes that is enough.